uh, 3 facilities currently in California on the residential side. So today we're going to break down whatever questions you have, whatever questions we've gotten from our investors and from the public in terms of operating small versus large assisted living facilities. So whatever questions you have, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to head things up first. Pheigh, maybe do you want to just give a quick intro about your background as well? I know that you're also a registered nurse as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks, Josh. My name is Pheigh. I am very grateful to be a part of this project and to be a part of this team. I am a registered nurse. I'm a hospice RN to be specific, and I have been serving the senior community for the past 12 or 13 years as a hospice RN. And I am an operator of a smaller RCFE or assisted living. Here in California, I have a 6-bed facility that has been under my operations since 2020. And then we have a 10-bed and a 15-bed also that we are working on in Northern California. So that's kind of my background. Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I'm excited for you all, and you guys are now moving even more into that mid-size, which I know is Ellen's place is 44 beds, which is in that middle size, not the big 100 plus bed one facilities. But let's dive into some of the nuances. So I guess maybe just we'll start from the very beginning. In terms of what does a team look like, both from a smaller RCFE to a larger, just from a high level perspective. Let's go smaller RCFEs first. Pheigh, what does an operation team look like there?
So for a smaller facility, because it's a residential home, a 6-bed home, I would have a team of caregivers. There are part-time, full-time caregivers that are there. The operator or the administrator can be myself, or I can hire that out and have another person to do the day-to-day activities. And basically, that's about it. We hire out people in terms of maintenance. We hire out people for activities. We hire out people for like music, entertainment, and things like that. In terms of clinical, we have maybe home health or hospice. They come into the home, so none of those are my employees. So it's a very small operation.
Okay. And then on the contrast, on a medium to larger scale, Elsa, what does the team look like there?
It's very similar, Josh. The biggest difference between a mid-size and a small size is that anytime you have more than 16 residents, you are required to have an activity director. So one person in charge of the activities for our grandma and grandpa. So they have to come up with activities on a daily basis, like, at such and such time, we do this, we do that, we go shopping, or we bring in people to work on their hairs or their nails, or so we do have a designated director in charge of that. We have designated person to take care of their meals. So meal planning, we call them chef. So we have designated person to take care of the food entirely. And then we have, of course, the director who oversee everybody. And then we have one person in charge of medication as well. So there's a med tech that take care of just the medicine part. And whereas, that's probably the biggest difference between the two is that we have designated personnel for every function. So we are a lot more efficient that way. And then we got the benefits of scale, right? So in smaller facility, even with 6 people, Pheigh would also have 2 full-time, 2 full-time all the time, because you can't just have one caregivers there. But in a bigger facility, I can have 2 person take care of maybe 10 people instead of 6 people. So, we benefit a little bit on the staffing ratio when it comes to a bigger facility.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more specialization. Pheigh, I know that you mentioned that your admin wears a lot of different hats, which I'm sure you're very grateful for. But it is nice to divvy up some of the tasks sometimes.
No, for sure. Like that admin, it could be myself, but now I'm not that person. She wears like hat as a chef, hat as an administrator doing all the paperwork, hat as the person who plans the menu. So it's not as efficient as the bigger one.
Okay. As we're breaking down just the, again, operations of the business, we're talking about food. How about as baseline as grocery shopping and food prep? Like how often does that get done on the RCFE side for the care home?
So for grocery shopping, we try to do like once a week, just so we can make sure that we have fresh fruits, fresh vegetables for our residents. And then in terms of meal prepping, that's done like once a week too. We try to plan our meals, try to make like batches in terms of like trays that we can put in the oven already, so it's already ready for dinner for like Wednesday and Thursdays. So yeah, that's it can be a lot of back and forth and work, just because you're doing it routinely. Pick up the groceries, chop up the fruits, chop up the vegetables, and that's going to be like one single person who's doing all those different things, as compared to the bigger facilities where that Elsa could speak on.
Well, we have a full-time person in charge of that, right? So that person does not have to wear too many hats, but just focus on the food part. And we have a menu planned out for the whole month. So every week that menu is posted so people know what they are getting each day. I was talking to the property managers, and we're thinking maybe we can have an option where they can like suggest on, hey, you know what, I would like to have such and such for breakfast next week, and then we can incorporate those ideas as well. So I don't know if you guys know here, but every facility, they have a resident council. So the residents are allowed to form their own council with their own ideas, and they take that, and we're supposed to have meetings and stuff like that, and they take that, they get together, they do their own thing, and they'll come to us and they say, hey, this is what we want, right? So it's not like we drive the bus the whole time. They get to decide on, I want this, I want that as well. So it's very much it's a community where we take their ideas, their opinion, their voices very seriously. And we'll work with them to make it, because at the end of the day, that's their home. That could be the last home that they'll be in, and we want to be able to make them be extremely comfortable, because that's their home. So they pay for rent, they pay to live there, and it's our duty to take really good care of them until they depart, whether they go back to the hospital or we don't know. But it is our honor to be able to be a part of that at the very end, the very last chapter of their life.
Yeah. Being able to personalize, things, their meals, personalize it according to what they were used to at home, is a great thing. And that, for at least to the 6-bed that I ran, when we have residents come into the home, I have a document that has like, okay, what is the usual breakfast for this? How does he like his eggs cooked? What is the usual lunch? What is the usual dinner? What are the things that she hates? What are the things that she's allergic to? Fruits that she would be happy to have. And so we get to personalize all of that in the smaller assisted living facilities. And that's what Elsa too wants to do for at least the bigger operation that we would be having.
Okay, so another topic that I know is very hot is staffing. Actually, one last note on the food prep. I know that, Garrison, when we were touring during the due diligence, we met the chef of the facility, and she was there for, I want to say, like over 10 years, right? So
and she started out as a caregiver.
Yeah.
So a nice aspect of the medium and larger facilities are, even though each person has an individual role, they're interchangeable to some degree, because it's a team concept all the way around, and something to keep in mind as we proceed with tonight's discussion.
Okay, so then the next thing, as you talk about staffing, which is a big question that a lot of people have and is probably regardless if it's smaller or larger, is always going to be something that we keep an eye on. Pheigh, from your experience, how do you make sure that you keep all your facilities staffed and well prepared?
So the good side, well, maybe let me speak on the downside of the staffing for the smaller facilities. Because it's a smaller facility, you have less staff to, there is less staff, and if someone calls off, then what happens? You kind of scramble, ask the next person, are you able to, jump in for that shift, or do you have more people to call? Is there a longer list of per diem people? And what happens sometimes if you have to pay more overtime because there is no extra person that could do the job. And yeah, so
Yeah, I'm kind of so. No, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, there's less backups that you have on the list. Elsa, what about you in terms of for this facility here and your experience? What are some of the fail states that we have in place?
Well, like just to chime on what Faye says, so the benefits of a bigger facility is that you have more than 2 floor person. So we have right now our payroll is I think 22 or 23 full-time staff. So with that being said, we have a lot more backup option in case somebody called in sick. We have people that we, maybe the one who worked the night shift, we can have them come in during the day shift to take over the spot of the person who's not able to come in. So there's some flexibility right there. It's a little bit easier to navigate through that process than, having a smaller facility where you only have 2 or 4 person at a time, and when person's sick, the other person has to work 16-hour shift.
Yeah, I mean, it's much like if you think about some of the other asset classes, take Airbnbs versus hotels. If your cleaner calls out sick, then it's real fun to find another cleaner really fast.
That's
Although
a really good example.
although in this case, obviously with an assisted living facility, you want to be a little bit more on that. Okay. So then as you talk about staffing and training and needs for certification, I guess how does that change? Like Pheigh, for you have the admin side, right, which is largely that, and then depending on the level of care. But are there any other nuances or specifications that if you're opening an RCFE that people have to be aware of?
it would be the same. Nuances in terms of certifications and training.
Yeah.
So for the 6-bed, the certification for the caregivers, there really isn't any certification. It's kind of like an on-the-job training. There's a specific number of hours that you have to be training them for medication management. You have to be training them dementia care. You have to be training them on like basic infection control and things like that as you're caring for the residents. But certification wise, as a caregiver, there really isn't a specific certification in the state of California. And then for administrators, we would have to do continuing educations or CEs, and we would have to renew that every other year. We would have to complete 40 hours of continuing education just to make sure that we're getting ourselves involved in the seminars to be aware of the latest and the greatest in terms of what's new, what are the things that changed, and also joining the meetings with Department of Social Services, because they would throw some Zoom meetings for updates and whatnot. And I think that would be the same with the bigger facilities.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we have a question here in the chat from Christina. So we did talk about qualifications right now, but what about retention? So I guess how does retention work on the smaller cell compared to the larger one? Pheigh, I'll jump with you first.
So I would feel like for the small facilities, you're all family. Like you kind of want to create that family style home-like environment. So in terms of retention, you want to make sure that you're treating them as such too. I mean, without crossing that line as like the boss and, you know, the employee, but making sure that everyone feels valued, everyone feels welcomed, everyone feels heard if they have any opinions. I think that goes a long way with the staff. Also just creating that environment of like teamwork. They like to have, for myself, we do meetings once a week so that we can discuss any challenges that we had for the month, and then also to have like a meal that we can all have together, and as like a team building. We either do it inside the home after their shift, or we do it outside. So that's a way, for me at least, of retaining my staff, and they've been happy so far.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know about the meal together with the staff, but because of the numbers of staff that we have, but you know, whatever that Pheigh touched on is pretty much the same for a bigger facility. We just have to take care of our staff. I think probably one of the advantage of having a bigger facility is that we're able to bring in more revenue, and perhaps, you know, we can pass on just, you know, maybe pay them a little bit more, or maybe give them more vacation time because we have more staff. So probably we can go a little bit further with bigger facility versus the smaller one, because of the economy of scale that we save money on, you know, like when you buy things in bulk, you save a little bit more money than if you buy retail, right? And it's the same with revenue, or even mortgage. You know, we have one building that we pay on mortgage on, versus if you have only 6 residents in a house, you probably need to have 7, 8 houses, you know, to make. So we'll make a little bit more revenue because we have a bigger facility, and because we have more revenue, I think staff, they, like, I've been working in a corporate environment for about 20 years before I become self-employed and entrepreneur. And I know it's not so much on how much money I make, but how appreciated I feel in a company. So if my boss makes me feel like, you know, I appreciate you, Elsa. And just that feeling of being appreciated in a company makes me want to work more and make me want to do more for the company. And I would want to be able to pass on that to our employees as well. And then Andy, our you know, one of our co-GP here, he this week, yesterday, he just sent me a list of KPI. You know, this is the thing that we want to go over with our staff, our property manager on our weekly call. And I think by abiding to our policy, have our policy in place, knowing, let them know what our expectations are. And I think they will appreciate that, rather than just let them, hey, you go do whatever you want.
Yeah, and I think on the retention play too, as I was thinking about the example that we shared about the current cook that's at the facility, is there could be more opportunities to then either move up or move around in the facility, right?
Yeah, we
Versus,
could cross-train them as well, right?
yeah, and so you can end up being the director of the facility as you come up versus, hey, I'm actually just really curious personally, how many times do you see admins who are managing these facilities then think, okay, I want to be the owner now? Like, how often does that actually happen?
You know, in my meeting, I am an admin, I'm an administrator myself. And when I was sitting in that class, there were actually a lot of people that work as a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And they sat in that class to become an admin, and a number of them, maybe a quarter, 25%, wants to do that because they want to own their own facility.
Okay, interesting. And then Pheigh, what are you seeing in terms of the conversations that you've had?
Yeah, it's about the same. I mean, they start off as a caregiver, they learn the business, they want to move up and be the admin of like, and if their boss is trying to buy more facilities, then they become the admin for 1 or 2 facilities, and then they kind of move up from there, and then maybe look into buying their own if they are able to.
Totally. Okay, so you have another question here, of course, which is the ratio conversation. Now, this largely plays in terms of what level of care that of the facility that you're operating. Pheigh, in your current ones, where do you kind of like to be at?
So for our current ones, we have a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 residents to one staff member. This is during the day. And then at night, we have an awake staff, which would be one caregiver to 6 residents.
Gotcha. And then Elsa, on a mid to large scale, again, I know it definitely changes on the level of care that we're given and the types of patients that we're accepting, but for this specific one.
Yeah, so on a bigger facility, I think it's best that because we have somebody that just solely focus on cooking, they don't have to like, oh, I gotta watch this resident at the same time. So right now we have over 22, I think we have 22 people for 30 residents. So I would say our ratio, we can easily do 1 through 4 or 1 to even 6 residents should be okay if they give the full focus to just caring for the resident, not having to be distracted by cooking or activities and stuff like that. So just purely care for them, wash their clothes, help them bathe, help them eat and stuff like that, because those are the main responsibilities. And just make sure they don't walk and fall and things of that sort. So we can do 1 to 4, 1 to 5 is what my goal is for our facility.
Okay.
And also, Josh, one more thing to think about whenever we're talking about staff ratios is the layout of the property itself, not just the level of care. Number one. Number two, one thing that Elsa and myself were able to play off a little bit, and us as a team, is the fact that we have 2 facilities located within 16 minutes from one another. So therefore, we're able to create a little bit of scale and a little bit of pushing and pulling from different teams and whatnot to fill in some of those missing pieces. But something to think about in regards to the layout of the facility, for example, the first facility, or I should say a current facility that we own is a 30-bed facility, but it is, if you were to go and look at it, we call it the Villages, and it is 7 individual houses, seven different buildings, same lot, same property, same deed. And the facility that Josh, that you and I did due diligence on along with Ashley, that was an old hospital, which has an ideal layout with the circle walk around, kind of everybody focused in one main building, one main facility, which we need less staff per resident in that facility versus, even though it's a lesser care, we need more staff per resident in the village type of concept. So that's something else to think about for anyone venturing into this business, and us to think about from an operations standpoint.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I was thinking about too in terms of the layout was specifically for almost like just memory care, which means that all exterior doors have to be locked. On a smaller scale side, you're obviously then limited to how big that backyard is versus being able to create different experiences and amenities for your residents to actually get outside and feel the sun. Okay, I want to switch a little bit to the finances. On a baseline, at least just from the clients that I worked with on the marketing side, but also just in my exploration to this asset class. On the residential side, it seems like the partnership structure is clearly just a lot smaller. There's less people who are coming together to do these deals, whether it be one family and or a couple of friends or family, versus obviously you can scale as big as you want and you can syndicate one. What would you say in terms of ownership mix? Is it largely just the owner operator who is kind of doing that initially, or what would you say?
Usually it's just the owner operator. If they have the experience, if they have the means, then you buy it, you operate it yourself. But also it's scale that way, because then you're just wearing too many hats. It's like you're working sometimes when you have the smaller facilities, you're working in the business more than on the business, and being able to see it in a bird's eye view and be able to expand. So
Totally. And then Elsa, obviously we are syndicating this deal. So how does that now change the structure then from someone who wants to invest in something a bit bigger?
Because that's the beauty of syndication, is that you could just, if you have $50,000, you could be a 5% owner of the facility without having to wear all the multiple hats or having to go through the whole process that Pheigh and I have been going through. And you still get super great, strong return for your investment. So you are limited, you are limited to to the responsibility that you have, but you are also an owner of the facility, even though you are limited partners, but you are still a partner. So I love syndication because a lot of people, want to kind of, they have interest in owning their own facility, but they don't want to take the risk of go all in. So they start out as a limited partner, learn whatever that they could through the process by, through watching us, through our monthly updates, so on and so forth. And then once they feel like, I'm probably ready to do this on my own right now, then they'll go out and they do it. But there are also a number of investors who have a W-2 job and they're just happy making 15-20% return on their investment without having to, get their hands dirty into all this daily operation and other works that we as, general partners have to do.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so in the chat here from Jason, we got jumped a few actually for this. Okay, first one's from Jeff. So when Elsa references larger facilities, how many residents? What's your benchmark again, Elsa? When you went small, medium, large, what's the bed count?
For a small, so for residential, like if you have a house in the residential neighborhood, you can only have 6 beds. That's the max. That's California. I think in Arizona you can do 10. But we only allowed to have 6 beds. So those are called, I guess those are small. And ours is mid-size to large or medium. And we have 44 beds. So I think it really depends on how you label it. There's some that say 1 to 6 will be small, and then 6 to 20 is medium, 6 to 25 is medium, and then 25 to 100 is large, and then 100 plus will be extra large. So I guess it's just a terminology that people use. I would call 44 beds medium size, mid size, but some people would call it large size, I don't think this is right or wrong.
Okay, and then a question here from Jonathan. So what kind of experience will an LP get? What will they be able to learn?
Well, you definitely can get that monthly updates from us, so you would know everything. If we would update you, like I mentioned, we have a KPI, a list of things that we would check, and those updates would go out to the investors on a monthly basis. There will be financial update that we release every quarter. But again, Garrison and I, we've been working together for almost 4 years now, and we always make ourselves available to our investors. And if a lot of LP, well, once they're ready for the transition, they reach out and they ask multiple questions, and we're there to, like, I'm more than happy just to carve out time and to share with them how to go about. Let's say if you want to go out and buy your own facility, if you want to start to syndicate your own deals, I'll show them the step on. I just walk them through the process on how to go about doing it. And when you go get a loan too, I think you can also put, even though you are a limited partner on the deals, when you file your application, you can also put it on the application that, you have part ownership on such and such deal. So it does help on your loan application.
Okay. So the next questions are a bit about finance. And I do want to dive into obviously the current deal that we're working through right now. And then maybe Pheigh, in between, you can color in maybe what on a smaller facility some of these expenses might be. Let me go ahead and share this. Okay, so this is Elm's place. This is the property. That's the 44 bed. Rooms are nice and clean. I want to go down here, communal area and kitchen. This is a center courtyard, and there's a couple other outdoor spaces as well on this property. We're talking about, there was a question about finances. I think it was slide here. So on a high level, for staffing, Elsa, what are we looking at?
A high level for staffing.
Yeah, for
So
the
that would be the first line that you see, labor related expenses. that would be staffing. So that would be the salary and wages that pay to the investors. That's the very first line.
Yeah,
It's
so that's
about 40%, right?
Yeah, about 40%. On average, according to the management team, you know, she likes to, she's been seeing it at around 30%. So ours is more on the higher. She did mention that we probably have more people than we need right now. But again, if the staff are good, then we'll keep them because we do plan to grow. And staffing is it's hard to find good caregivers in this business. The one good thing about our Elam's place is that most of the staff who work here have been here for a lot of years. So they've been around and they're experienced. They must like this place. That's why they haven't left. So we actually, benefit from that. So we're not planning to, really, we have to, so when you buy a facility, we have to unhire everybody and rehire them. Because now they have to go under the new company. So they all have to go through the whole interview process again. And we may weed out one or two person that might not be a good fit for the company. But for the most part, we plan to keep most, if not all of the staff. And we plan to hire more as our number increase. Right now they are at 71% occupancy. But as we increase our occupancy to 80%, 86%, then we're definitely going to bring in more staff as you see the revenue increase from year to year as well.
okay. Then on the flip side, so Pheigh, there's a question here. So this is from Jason, staffing is the bulk of the expense, but on a RCFE side for economies of scale, would you able to ballpark what you pay for staffing? And then in terms of admin costs, because you now hire out another admin to be that full-time admin, how much should someone expect there?
I mean, it really depends on the experience and the part of what they're doing. Like for the admin, it can range from, $25 to $45. If they were a caregiver, they did their admin license, and they're kind of just starting out to understand how to manage staff, how to manage, operations and such. I feel like it really depends, but currently we're around that range on the smaller scale, and then the mid size that we have, or like not mid 15 or 20 bed that we have, it ranges between 28 to about $42 is what they're making.
Okay, and then if you had to ballpark, I know this is pop quiz and you don't have your books in front of you, but if you had to ballpark in terms of expenses of the business on the residential side, what would you think?
I would say like expenses, it would still be like 70%, and then 30% would be profit.
Okay.
About the same for this, but the numbers are smaller.
Yeah.
If you're running it correctly, 70%, 30% would be a good number to say.
Okay. Very cool. And then Elsa, just on a high level summary here, for those who missed the first webinar, can you break down some of these key metrics here?
Sure. So very high level right now, the property is it has 44 beds and they have 31 residents in there, so about 71% occupancy. They do all private pay, and this facility, Elam Place, has been around for a very long time, so a lot of the residents come through referrals. Kaisers and just people just know this is a memory care facility, so they send their people there. So they do very little marketing, and the owners is very comfortable at 70% occupancy. She really does not want to increase the number of residents there because she's very comfortable operated with the amount of staff that she has. But again, that is the advantage. When I look at this deal, I'm like, I see, there is the opportunity for us to increase about 20 to 30%. I like to keep it at 90% because we want to keep a few extra beds just vacant just in case. So ideally, I would like to take this from 90%, 70% to 90%. And when we work through the state-approved ALW or assisted living waiver program, for memory care dementia patient, they would fall into tier 4 or 5. And those tier, if you average it out, if I do even 70% tier 4 and 30% tier 5, tier 4 pays 6,000, tier 5 pays 7,500 a month. You get about 6,400 a month per resident per month. So that is the opportunity for us to increase that revenue from the 5232 to 6,400 a month. What I did not include on this key investment highlights is that ALW does not pay for room and board. So that's kind of like rent. So that 6,400 is just to pay for the services that they receive at our facility. But remember, the ALW people are really poor population. They are on Medi-Cal, and it's like a state pay, you know, like you're in a certain group that you qualify for this program. So they don't have a lot of saving. But what they have is that they do get SSI every month from the government, and that runs anything from $1,200 to maybe $1,500 a month. And ALW do allow us to charge them rent using their SSI payment. So on average, if we charge, you know, I run a number for $750 a month, which means like you pay, I'll take 50% of your SSI. 750 times 40 beds times 12, so $360,000 extra a year that we'll get. And that number is not included on here. So that is like a cherry on top. But again, that's, you know, take the property from 70% to 90%, increase the pay from 5232 to 6,400 over a period of 3 years. So by year 3, we should hit that 6,400 a month. The first 2 years, we slowly go from private to year 2, half private, half ALW, and then year 3, by the end of year 3, we should have 100% ALW. Our loan, so with that, you know, once we implement that business plan, we should be able to take our revenue from currently about $2 million to about 3.5. Once we stabilize, that means we can also take our net income from currently $650,000 to about $1 million, $1.1 million at stabilization. So that is, you know, all that when we pay the investor 8% return, that's kind of 8% interest rate that we pay you. And then after we pay that, whatever money left after we paid your 8% return, you get an additional 50%. Investor get an additional 50% on top of the 8% that they receive. So because of that additional 50%, that how you able to get your, you know, your total return about 170%. As you can see, that total return about 67 to 170. That give us an equity multiple of 2.67. Now keep in mind, all this is without SSI income. With SSI income included, that IRR actually will go up to about 37% from 27%. So the number is pretty tremendous. It's very good. Our goal is to return all the capital of the investor in year number 3. When we stabilize, we refinance into a HUD loan, and HUD loan has the lowest interest rate. It's also amortized over a longer period of time, maybe 35 years. And so we just return all the money, the return of capital in year 3. But the first 3 years is just return on capital. That's mean we give you the interest payment, we give you the equity profit share. Year 3, we return all the money back to you. But because you have that 50% equity in a profit share in the company, you get what's called infinity return. So let's say, you know, after you get all your money back, you know, before we make $1 million, $500,000 will still go to the LP. And if you have 10% equity, then you get 10% of that $500,000 a year. So, which is really nice because you already get all your money back in year 3. And then we just keep the property, I say we exited in year 7 to 10. So it's infinite return anyway. So if the property is doing well, everyone makes money. Really, there's no reason to sell it. But if I have to put a number on it, maybe we exit in year 7, year 8 or so.
Yeah, and that refi that changes the HUD loan then changes the financial outlook a lot, right? Because it's amortized
100%.
longer,
Yeah.
interest is lower. Okay, cool. What other questions are there in the chat here? All right, so we have where most of the deals located. Where are you guys looking for deals now? And obviously you guys have now, this is the second deal in the Fresno market, but what other markets are exciting to you all?
I'll let Garrison take that question. You're muted, Garrison.
Fresno is the focus right now, only because of scalability, because of the ALW program for us and our operations team. But really, we're focused on assisted living anywhere in California. If the numbers make sense and the commute, et cetera, makes sense. And I gravitated towards California for a couple different reasons. Biggest reason being is everybody's flocking out of here in terms of real estate investing. I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to be an apartment building owner. Now, we do own a couple of apartment complexes around Los Angeles and San Diego, and we still own a lot of big apartment complexes across the country. But in terms of assisted living, we are aimed, geared, and focused towards California, and specifically towards the ALW markets. There's 9 counties in the state of California that do allow ALW. So that's kind of our focus right now. But this business model can be accomplished in really any market that any markets as close to home. You just need to figure out exactly what works for you, exactly what the nuances of your market is, and then start surrounding yourself and hanging out with people that have been there and done it.
Yeah. What we're really looking for is ALW pay, because they pay the same, where I pay $10 million for a building or $5 million for a building. So cheaper real estate, ALW pay, and within 4 or 5 hours drive from where I live, because I want to be able to show up if there's an emergency, even though we have management company, but Garrison and I are very, very much owner involved in all of our deal. And it's nice to have a management company to do all the paperwork and, handle the staff and this and that. But that doesn't mean that we get to sit back and do nothing. We plan to be very, very hands-on. And as a matter of fact, I just talked to my property manager this week, and I told her, I know you don't like to be micromanaged, and I'm not a micromanager, but we definitely need to have a weekly call. We have our KPIs, and we need to stay on top of everything. And she goes, no, it's your call. I totally get it. But that's our style, right? Because we have a duty to our investors, and we want to ensure the projects are successful. So we're definitely going to be super hands-on in everything that we do.
And what's the updated timeline for this one?
So what we'll pretty much approve for the loan and everything, and I'm just working on just little final details here and there. But what really hold us up is that the lender needs a tax clearance. So, and that's an IRS thing. It could take 45 days. It could take 60 days. We ordered this thing about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. We may be able to have it clear by the end of September. And if it does, then we'll close by the end of September. If not, then we're looking to close around mid-October. So it's really depend on the IRS timeline. We have no control over that tax thing.
Okay. And Pheigh, were you gonna say something?
Oh, but I was gonna say in terms of like this deal, it's really important to actually I forgot what I was gonna say.
Let me here's a couple questions in the comments below. 44 beds is how many bedrooms? Does each bed has their own bedroom? How many bathrooms would a 44 bed require? Every facility is going to be a little bit different. Most bedrooms constitute 2 beds. So 2 beds per bedroom, assuming it has the right square footage and you have the right requirements for that bedroom. X amount of square footage of dresser space, closet space, a chair, a nightstand, things of that sort. But in general, a 44 bed facility would be 22 beds per se. It's a 10,000 square foot facility. Used to be a hospital, and then the hospital outgrew itself, and then it became an assisted living facility. What other questions do you see, Josh?
Got one from Jonathan. What are the CapEx expenses going to be spent on?
CapEx on this particular property. This property, it was built in 1956, which is older than what we really like for real estate wise, but it was renovated around the year 2000 and then refreshed and updated. As you can see in some of these photos here that Josh can flip through, it was updated and refreshed in 2023. So property is in very good condition. We are holding back about, Elsa, is it 400,000 for CapEx? Or 250? What was the number on this one?
It's 400,000.
400. So we have money set aside for HVAC replacements, potential partial roof. A majority of the roof was replaced. A couple of the AC units were replaced, but some of them are of older style. Other than that, just general repairs and upkeep. Not a lot to do on this particular facility.
Yeah, and then in our conversation too, the seller also put in, would you say, $500,000 in some in the recent renovation? So
Yeah, something like that. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Anyone who has questions, feel free to raise your hand. You know, this is meant to be an interactive discussion. Feel free to raise your hand, comment, ask any questions in the chat below, whatever works best for you. But that looks like that is all of the questions from below, Josh.
yeah. I mean, I guess as we're just chatting with the group here, I mean, I'm just curious in terms of the audience mix, who has invested in assisted living before?
And I had to re-let Elsa back in. Looks like she might have got disconnected. And here's a question in the chat below. What is the regulatory environment like in California for residential assisted livings? Pheigh, take it away. What is the regulatory environment like in California for residential?
For residential, that Elsa was speaking earlier that the maximum for the residential is 6. Someone put a comment and it can be more than 6. You just have to comply with the environmental or the regulations of the fire department. So as long as you have sprinklers and all that, you can have 10 residents or 15 residents in a residential area. But it all depends on your fire marshal.
Do you also have to get zoning variance for that? Do you have to get an approved variance or no?
Depending on the city, you would have to have like a business permit and change the zoning. So it's city by city, from what I understand.
Yeah. So a lot of people in that situation would buy a commercial lot in a commercial area and then build what would appear to be a residential house, but it might be a 15-bedroom house, etc., in order to accomplish that.
Jeff is saying that it's the Wild West over in Arizona. I mean,
Tracy Nguyen, did Elsa say the ROI is 8%? 8%, there's an 8% preferred return on our newest facility for tier 1, A1, I guess we're calling it. $50,000 investment, $100,000 investment gets you an 8% preferred return, meaning that 8% comes to you before it comes to us. On top of that 8% return, you also get a 50-50 equity split, 50 GP, 50 LP investors. So on top of that 8% preferred return, you get a part of the equity. The more money this facility makes from a real estate standpoint, from a business standpoint, the LPs, the investors in that deal, get 50% of that. And on class A2, which is a minimum $200,000, the preferred return jumps up from 8 to 10%. And we've already had a couple of investors come in at the $200,000 minimum. And those investors will get a 10% preferred return, number one. And then they get a 50-50 split on the equity portion of it. So the actual ROI is a lot higher than the 8 and 10%. But the 8 and 10% is what you get before any GPs get their return, if that makes sense. And if that doesn't make sense, feel free to reach out to any of us on this call, Josh, Pheigh, Elsa, or myself.
So the ROI is around 26 to 30% on this project. So 8% is just the preferred return, and then with the equity, it adds up to about almost 30% return, 30% ROI.
And that's taken into account the equity split that we just discussed. And that equity
Man,
split,
don't bring that shit here, man. Hi, baby. We don't want Beyonce and country and a boot scoot nigga with wicks. Man, fuck that shit. And I already got a whole and now they done shit. Boycott the BET Award.
Hold on.
There.
All right.
There you go.
I can't see who that was. I was trying to mute whoever was not muted.
Yeah, there's like random bots sometimes we'll get into these, but yes, okay, kick them out.
We've only been hacked on these one time in 4 years of doing this. That was kind of number 2 right there.
All right, and then we got another question from Jeff. Can you reference the Department of Health Services statute governing residential ALFs? Pheigh, do you have an answer for that one?
Yeah, so for residential, we are under Department of Social Services for California. I think for other states, it is Department of Health Services, but for us, it's Department of Social Services.
One from Matthew here. When you refinance, is the 50% payout take into consideration the new evaluation? Is the 50% payout taken into consideration of the evaluation?
From my understanding of that question, the LPs are 50% owner all the way through. I'm assuming that's kind of what the question refers to. So you're 50% on day one.
I'll go to the gate parade and shoot it up, nigga.
With the original evaluation, and then you are still 50% owner of this facility, 50% equity. After the refinance, after we stabilize it from 70 to 90% occupancy, after we increase the bed price per bed, and after we take it from private pay to assisted living waiver pay. So I think that answers that question.
Got it.
Other than that, any other questions, Josh?
Not that I see here, and I'm not admitting anyone else from the waiting room, by the way. So there's that.
Yeah, I'll let it how it is unless I recognize the name.
Yeah, I did in the chat though. If you want to learn a little bit more about the deal, I did put the link down to the portal here in the chat as well. And if you just create an account, you'll be able to get some of the contact information for Elsa and Garrison. But I'll also just drop my email here as well in case anyone wanted to connect. And Pheigh, I think I have yours as well, so I'll drop that. But
Sure.
Also, actually, I wanted to add some.
yeah, Hero.
That's it. So this is actually a really big teamwork community that we are working with. Not only are we working with the people here, but we have a network of other owners and operators, specifically from an association called our CFE association, where we're able to get a lot of the ideas, a lot of the new pins, stuff from Department of Social Service. So we are in tune with the pulse of the industry, with other operators, big and small. We are updated with all the new technology that is out there. We go to plenty of conferences. So we are always expanding our reach in terms of like how to provide the best quality uh, in terms of like electronic documentation. That's something that's brand new, that's really kind of helping systemize everything put together, med management, going connecting with pharmacy uh, uh, within your area. So everyone is now being linked together to actually grow this industry and make it more quality. So there are a lot of other people out there that we're in contact with, and the management company as well is in that same circle where we're all constantly learning, constantly reviewing new things. We're in constant contact with the Department of Social Service. Um, so kind of just want to give you an assurance that we're not stopping at, kind of the mom and pop mentality that we see a lot of, smaller facilities have. We're constantly growing. We want to make sure that we are, going to elevate the industry in terms of quality. And we can't do it unless we're all doing it at the same time uh, throughout the country. So I kind of just wanted to add that as well, just for some of you guys. RCFE Association, if you want to look into that. And, yeah, just a little bit of background.
Thank you, Hiro. No, I mean, I think it's important. In the business, as you look at some of the other operations, it's usually generational at this point now, with a lot of second, third generation owners, and whether the facility has not been kept up or the operation itself not been updated, but there's a lot of operational efficiencies, even on the marketing side, that you can easily implement in. A few last questions here. Are you hosting a tour of the facility for LPs? I mean, I'm sure you can take a tour whenever you'd like, and Garrison is pretty close by, so reach out to Garrison and you can take a look at there. It is it's a very clean facility. So versus some of the other ones that I've toured. Is there an investor portal where financial reports can be viewed? Yes, I'll drop the link again to the portal right there. Oh, thank you, Garrison. And so that's all down there. And then question here from Matthew. Do you require a first right refusal of the 50% equity if partners want to sell their interest?
Normally we get a first right of refusal. Absolutely.
Sweet. Oh.
What's the biggest challenge to stabilizing a facility of this sort? Really, it just takes time. Nothing different than apartment complexes. It takes time. Where we see a lot of people messing up on their underwriting and their financial analysis of the property is they think that it's going to be done overnight. It takes time to go from 70% occupancy to 90% occupancy, number one. It takes time to initiate and install the government pay programs. And then it's a process. It's not like we're going to go in there tomorrow and say, hey, you know what? You're paying less than you should be. It's all you can afford. Good luck to you. We're going to ask you to move out in 60 or 90 days. That is not our business mentality. Yes, this is a very lucrative business, but first and foremost, we want to make sure that we have a very, 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 lack of a better word, homey feeling atmosphere. We want to provide a great place for someone to live, someone to call home. We want great meals. We want a roof over their head, a comfortable bed under their back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it takes time. So if you look at our financial analysis, that's why you see it tiered. Year one, we do this. Year two, we do this. And then year three, by the end of year three, all of this that we just mentioned should have taken place. The average expectancy of someone living in an assisted living facility is anywhere from 1.5 to 3 years for the most part. And then they either move into nursing care or they move back home with family, whatever that kind of looks like. So as those people start to phase out, we will start to phase in our initiative, as well as from day one, we will work from 70 to 90%. But there's a process to implement the ALW. There's a process to getting all beds up to where we want them to be in regards to price per bed. Here's a question for Pheigh. As an owner, can I still be the facility delegating RN?
So for California, there is no delegating RN as compared to other states like Arizona. So I'm not sure in terms of like that question of can she be the delegating RN and can you own the facility at the same time? Yes, you can. Like I'm a registered nurse, but my role in my facility is not an RN. I am the administrator who does all the day-to-day operations. But if we have clinical needs, we partner up with hospice companies, home health companies, and then use their primary care physicians to delegate those things.
And Josh, let me touch upon this one question. I didn't really say much about it. Are we hosting tours for the LPs? We are, after we close the deal. We've had a couple of individuals who wanted to tour the facility prior that have now invested with us. And you have to go mystery shop the facility. Something that's kind of interesting with assisted living versus apartments is they don't want me coming back to the facility because you don't want to spook the caregivers, number one. You don't want to spook the residents, number two, and you don't want to spook the residents' families, number three. What do most people hate in life? Change. So they don't want to see change. And we don't want people getting nervous. Hey, there's someone buying this facility. Someone's coming in and taking over this facility. So on the reverse side of that, also a part of the assisted living world versus the apartment world is almost everything, at least anything that is good, is a pocket listing. You got to build the relationships with the brokers. You got to build the relationships with the sellers in order to get these facilities. They're not publicly listed because, once again, you don't want to spook the caregivers. You don't want to spook the families. Other than that, Josh, any other questions below?
Looks like Alexi's got a nice vacation spot in Yosemite. And then Christina was asking, do you share the financial reports with the LPs after the deal is closed? Is that done on a quarterly basis, an annual basis? How do you guys do that?
Financial reports are shared very regularly, depending on exactly when we get everything kind of put together from our KPIs and the management company. And we keep using the word property management company. It's more so an operations management company. But all reports are shared on a monthly and a quarterly basis.
All right. I think that's the questions in the chat.
And distributions are paid on a quarterly basis. So other than that, no more questions. I'm going to end the recording now. Number one, keep in mind we do this once a month. Multifamily Masters Live, register one time. We do this every month, normally on the third Wednesday of the month. Starting next month, we're going to change that to a Thursday. And now after this, we're going to have a networking opportunity for people on here, and we're going to stop sharing on social media.